In this video, we are stripping down the exact financial benchmarks you need to target during every single stage of your adult life to guarantee absolute financial autonomy and a stress-free retirement. These markers are organized by age groups, but here is the golden rule. If you manage to crush a target ahead of schedule, do not wait around. Feel completely free to jump straight into the next phase, regardless of the number on your driver's license. Your financial journey is uniquely yours, and building momentum early is the ultimate cheat code. Let us kick things off with the critical phase of your 20s, which sets the entire foundation for everything that follows. This is the decade where your choices carry the absolute highest compounding leverage, meaning a single smart move right now echoes for the next 40 years. In this initial phase, there are three non-negotiable targets you must lock your sights on if you want to distance yourself from the average crowd and build unstoppable wealth. The absolute first priority in your 20s is the aggressive destruction of bad debt. When we talk about toxic liabilities, we are specifically targeting any balance carrying a punishing high interest rate, generally anything hitting north of 12 to 15% APR. The harsh reality of wealth building is that it is virtually impossible to outinvest high-interest debt over the long run. Think about the basic mechanics. If you're bleeding 15% interest annually on a credit card balance while simultaneously scraping together investments that yield an average of 8% in the market, you are actively losing money every single month. It is a mathematical uphill battle that you cannot win. Most individuals simply cannot discover an investment vehicle that consistently outpaces the wealth-eroding destruction of a high interest rate. That is exactly why clearing these balances is the single smartest move you can make right now. Getting rid of high interest obligations provides a completely risk-free, guaranteed return on your capital that beats almost any alternative asset class available. To put this into perspective, even the stock market's historical long-term average return of 8% to 10% per year cannot keep pace with typical credit card rates. On the flip side, if you hold low interest debt, such as a mortgage sitting comfortably at a 4% interest rate, it changes the math entirely. In that specific scenario, redirecting your extra cash into investments makes perfect sense because your expected market returns are significantly higher than the cost of the loan. The key lies in finding the right balance between your risk tolerance, liquidity needs, and opportunity cost, but eliminating high interest remains the standard gold practice. Once that drag is removed, you can pivot to the second major milestone, having between 1 to 2 times your annual expenses completely saved and invested by the time you celebrate your 30th birthday. This means totaling your actual living costs, calculating what you require for a full 12 months, and building a dedicated wealth nest egg of that exact scale. Let us look at a practical example using adjusted round numbers. If your necessary monthly expenses hover around $3,000 1 year of survival, runway equals $36,000, while a 2-year milestone pushes that target to $72,000. Looking at broader economic data, the average 20-year-old spends approximately $3,863 per month, which translates to roughly $46,300 annually. Therefore, an excellent stretch goal for a high achiever would be securing between $46,000 and $92,000 in a retirement portfolio before turning 30. Reaching this target positions you light years ahead of the pack, considering the median individual in their 20s holds just about $29,000 in retirement savings. Hitting this 1 to 2 times threshold transforms your reality because it guarantees you are actively capturing the magic of compounding interest early on. Furthermore, in the absolute worst-case scenario, this capital can serve as an ultimate backup to support your emergency fund if a massive crisis hits, giving you bulletproof peace of mind. This brings us to the third milestone of your 20s, establishing the unbreakable habit of saving 15% of your gross income. When you look at the broader landscape, the official personal savings rate in America sits at a mere 3.8%. By drastically overshooting this baseline, you position yourself perfectly to build a resilient safety net while ensuring you can retire comfortably. If you start from a net worth of 0 and consistently set aside 15%, the math shows you will achieve complete financial freedom in exactly 43 years. Honestly, personal finance becomes an elegantly solved equation once you automate this exact percentage. If you are finding these insights valuable, hit that like button and subscribe to Kyle Invests right now. By automating your savings, You can spend the remaining 85% of your earnings entirely guilt-free. Are you currently managing to save 15% of your income, or is inflation making it tough? Let me know in the comments. This rhythm ensures your savings scale naturally as your income grows. Welcome to the most expensive decade of your life, your 30s. This is the era where massive financial responsibilities suddenly hit you all at once. We are talking about buying your first house, paying for a wedding, and maybe even welcoming kids into the world. Because of these heavy lifestyle upgrades, you are naturally going to feel financially stretched thinner than ever before. But as someone navigating this exact landscape, I have thought critically about the specific benchmarks we need to lock down by the time we hit the Big 4-0. The very first target on this list is a widely respected rule from major institutions. By the age of 40, you should have exactly 3 times your annual salary saved up strictly for retirement. This is the benchmark that separates those who will struggle later from those who will coast into their golden years. It sounds intimidating, especially when you are juggling a mortgage and daycare costs, but hitting this multiple is your ultimate safety net. It means that the money you have already planted has enough critical mass to grow on its own, taking the heavy lifting off your shoulders for the next 2 decades. Let us break down the exact math on how this plays out in the real world. To see this in action, let us look at some standard income figures. According to official labor statistics, a typical professional reaching their 40s might be earning around $70,000 a year. Applying our 3 times rule, your target retirement balance by your 40th birthday needs to sit at roughly $210,000. Now, why is this specific number so magical? It all comes down to the relentless power of uninterrupted compounding. If you park that $210,000 in a solid investment portfolio and never add another dime to it, standard market returns could push that balance to over $2 million by the time you reach the standard retirement age of 67. Think about that for a second. Having a massive chunk of capital actively working for you in the background means you no longer have to panic about catching up. Imagine a guy named David who stresses over every penny in his 50s because he missed this milestone, compared to someone who hit that $210,000 mark and can now comfortably focus on their career and family. Securing this substantial base ensures that time is fully on your side, compounding your wealth silently while you sleep. Moving on to the second crucial milestone for your 30s, achieving absolutely zero consumer debt. I am talking about completely wiping out everything except for your primary mortgage. Recent financial reports show a frightening reality. The average individual in this age bracket is drowning in roughly $76,000 of total debt. Even when you strip away the home loans, many are still lugging around $27,000 in personal loans or auto financing, plus another $5,000 strictly in suffocating credit card balances. Your 30s are supposed to be the prime years where your career takes off and your income accelerates. The absolute worst thing you can do is let a heavy debt burden drag down your wealth building potential. Your goal right now is to aggressively clear out those car payments, completely eliminate student loans, and destroy credit card balances forever. Keeping your monthly burn rate as low as humanly possible gives you an incredible psychological advantage. It provides you with ultimate flexibility. The only exception we make here is the mortgage. Paying off a massive home loan immediately is unrealistic for 99% of people, so we will keep that strategic debt for now and tackle it in a later decade. The third major milestone for your 30s is to level up your aggressive saving habits. If you followed the blueprint from your 20s, you were comfortably tucking away 15% of your income. Now that you have hit your 30s, it is time to turn up the dial and push that minimum savings rate to a solid 20%. Earning more money means your lifestyle has likely inflated slightly, so increasing your contribution percentage is mathematically necessary to keep you on track for a truly abundant retirement. But saving for the distant future is only half the battle. This milestone also demands a heavy, fully stocked emergency fund. And honestly, the national statistics on this are terrifying. Recent banking polls reveal that a shocking 33% of the population carries more credit card debt than they have in emergency cash. Let me repeat that. 1 in 3 people literally owe more to the banks at 20% interest than they have saved for a rainy day. That is exactly the trap we are going to avoid on this channel. You cannot afford to live on the edge anymore. Your 30s bring way too many unpredictable variables, and you need a thick layer of cash armor to protect your family from disaster. Why does your emergency fund need to be so much larger now? Because the stakes are incredibly high. In your 20s, a financial emergency might just mean a flat tire or a broken laptop. But in your 30s, emergencies look vastly different. You are dealing with expensive roof repairs on your house, unexpected medical bills for your children, or perhaps even stepping in to financially support your aging parents. These massive, real-world responsibilities demand instant, liquid cash. If you do not have it, you will be forced to borrow at terrible rates, undoing years of hard work. The standard golden rule of personal finance dictates holding 3 to 6 months of vital living expenses in a completely separate high-yield savings account. However, if your income is volatile, say you work in sales or run your own business, or if you simply prefer maximum security, I highly recommend expanding that buffer to a full 12 months. Imagine the supreme peace of mind you will feel knowing that if the economy crashes or you lose your job tomorrow, you have an entire year to figure things out without touching your investments or going into debt. That is true financial power. Welcome to your 40s. You are established, your career is humming, but the financial weight is heavier than ever. You are balancing your own lifestyle, maybe teenagers, and the sudden realization that your 50s are right around the corner. Up until now, the game plan was all about building the habit, getting that 15 to 20% of your income automatically invested every month. But as you cross into this crucial fourth decade, the playbook completely changes. Your priority shifts from simply saving money to fiercely optimizing every single dollar. Why? Because every dollar you invest from this point forward has a shorter runway to compound before you actually need to spend it. The clock is ticking a bit louder. That brings us to the very first non-negotiable milestone for your 40s. You need to aggressively maximize your contributions to every tax-advantaged retirement account available to you. We are talking about pushing your 401k, your Roth IRA, or any other workplace plan to the absolute legal limit. You cannot afford to leave tax-free growth on the table anymore. Let us look at the dramatic difference between just participating and fully maxing out. Imagine a scenario where you are utilizing a standard retirement account, but you are only putting in about half the allowable limit. Let us say you are contributing $4,000 a year starting at age 40. Assuming a standard 10% annual market return, you would reach age 65 with roughly $390,000. That is not terrible, but what if you pushed hard and maxed it out at $8,000 a year? You would cross the finish line with almost $780,000. That single decision literally doubles your financial firepower in retirement. And honestly, you need that firepower because the average 40-year-old is dangerously behind schedule. Recent institutional data shows that the average retirement account balance for people in their 40s is sitting around $105,500. But the median, which is a much more accurate reflection of the typical person, is a terrifyingly low $34,100. By fully funding your accounts now, your goal is to completely eclipse those averages, aiming to have roughly 5 to 6 times your annual salary tucked away by the time you blow out 50 candles. The second major financial milestone to conquer in your 40s is constructing at least one additional stream of income. By the time you are in this decade, relying on a single paycheck from one employer is a massive, unnecessary risk. You want to build a secondary cash flow that gives you leverage as you approach your 50s and 60s. This does not mean you have to build the next Amazon. It could be as simple as leveraging your decades of professional expertise into a part-time consulting gig, creating digital products, or acquiring a single cash-flowing rental property. Let us say you start a quiet weekend side business that generates just an extra $800 to $1,200 a month. That might not sound like retire on a yacht money, but that extra capital can cover your entire grocery budget, fund a family vacation, or be funneled directly into investments to accelerate your wealth. More importantly, establishing this semi-passive income creates a psychological safety net. It reduces the immense pressure on your primary job and guarantees that if your main industry takes a sudden hit, you still have options. Your third priority in your 40s is one that most people want to actively avoid thinking about: finalizing a comprehensive estate plan. This is absolutely critical if you have a spouse, children, or any significant assets to your name. Shockingly, around 34% of people between the ages of 35 and 54 have completely ignored this process, having never discussed estate planning with a professional or even their family. Do not be part of that statistic. A solid estate plan is actually quite straightforward. At a minimum, you need a living will and a healthcare power of attorney. These vital documents clearly dictate your personal preferences and medical decisions if you ever become unable to speak for yourself. You also need to legally designate a trusted guardian for any minor children. While you can find basic templates online to customize and get notarized, sitting down with a legal professional to bulletproof your family's future is usually worth the investment. Having your wishes locked down in writing is the ultimate act of taking care of the people you love. Now, we transition into your 50s. This is the decade where everything gets very real. Retirement is no longer some abstract concept decades away. It is parked right around the corner. You are likely in your absolute highest earning years, but you are also juggling massive financial events, like pushing kids through college or trying to aggressively pay down the final chunk of your mortgage. Because the finish line is clearly in sight, you must act with intense urgency. That brings us to the first critical milestone of your 50s, executing a retirement budget test. This is a fascinating exercise where you deliberately live strictly on your projected retirement income for a span of 3 to 6 months. Financial experts generally suggest you will need about 55% to 80% of your current income to survive comfortably in retirement. So, calculate 80% of what you make right now and force yourself to live exclusively on that exact amount. Track every single penny. This practical stress test instantly exposes any hidden flaws in your financial plan, showing you exactly where you overspend while you still have the time and the income to fix it. We have finally arrived at the ultimate destination, the decade of your 60s. Up until this point, your entire financial journey has been heavily focused on aggressive growth, accumulating assets, and relentlessly climbing the mountain. But the moment you enter your 60s, the playbook flips entirely. You are no longer trying to conquer the financial world. Your absolute primary mission now is the preservation of capital. It is no longer about accumulating all the money in the universe, but rather strictly optimizing the wealth you have spent the last 40 years building. Think of it like shifting from a high-octane offensive strategy to a bulletproof defensive stance. You do not want to take unnecessary risks when you are this close to the finish line, because you simply do not have the runway to recover from a massive market crash. Your mindset needs to pivot from asking, how can I double this, to asking, how do I ensure this lasts me for the next 30 years? This psychological shift can actually be quite jarring for people who are used to grinding. But mastering it is the key to a stress-free transition. That brings us directly to the first major milestone of your 60s, making a calculated decision on exactly when to trigger your Social Security or pension benefits. This is a massive, life-altering choice. In the United States, you technically have the option to start claiming Social Security as early as age 62. However, pulling that trigger early comes with a severe penalty. Your lifelong benefits could be slashed by as much as 30% compared to waiting for your full retirement age of 67. On the flip side, if you have the financial stamina to delay claiming those benefits until you hit the age of 70, the government actually rewards you tremendously. You can lock in an 8% guaranteed increase for every single year you delay past your full retirement age. That is a permanent, risk-free boost to your monthly income for the rest of your natural life. You have to weigh your current health, your immediate cash flow needs, and your family history to decide the absolute perfect moment to start taking those checks. It is a highly personalized mathematical puzzle, but getting it right ensures maximum comfort in your final decades. The second crucial milestone in your 60s is actively rebalancing your investment portfolio to dramatically lower your risk profile. When you step away from your career, your steady paycheck vanishes, meaning your income suddenly becomes heavily dependent on your assets. You can no longer afford stomach-churning volatility. Having 90% of your money in aggressive growth stocks is incredibly dangerous at this stage. Instead, a standard financial practice is to shift a significant portion of your wealth into fixed income vehicles. A widely accepted benchmark is moving at least 55% of your portfolio into stable assets like bonds, high-yield dividend companies, and reliable treasuries. This creates a predictable stream of cash that acts as a shock absorber when the broader stock market takes a dip. The remaining portion of your money can still be diversified across equities or alternative investments, like real estate, to keep fighting inflation. But the core foundation must be rock solid. You want to sleep peacefully at night knowing that a sudden economic downturn will not force you to sell your assets at a massive loss just to buy groceries. The third and perhaps most overlooked milestone of your 60s has absolutely nothing to do with numbers or spreadsheets. You must aggressively define your new life purpose and daily routine. Financial planners see this happen all the time. Someone retires with millions in the bank only to fall into a deep depression within 6 months because they lost their entire sense of identity. When you suddenly have 40 extra hours a week, sitting on the couch watching television will get miserable very quickly. You need to identify what brings you deep, genuine fulfillment before you hand in that final resignation letter. Whether it means transitioning into a light consulting role, dedicating your time to a meaningful charity, mentoring the next generation, or finally launching that passion project you ignored in your 30s. Human beings are biologically wired to need a sense of progress and a strong connection to a community. Building a rich, engaging daily schedule with people you actually enjoy being around is the true secret to a successful retirement. Money simply buys you the free time. It is completely up to you to fill that time with meaning. Hitting these targets across every single decade is not about being absolutely perfect. It is about keeping yourself moving in the right direction so you can eventually step away from the workforce on your own terms, with total dignity and zero panic. You are building a lifelong architecture of wealth that will protect you and your family for generations. Now, I am really curious to hear your perspective on this entire timeline we just walked through. Which decade's financial milestone do you think is the absolute hardest to actually achieve in today's unpredictable economy? I want to know which phase feels the most challenging right now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Drop your answer about the hardest decade milestone down in the comments below. I would love to read your perspective. See you in the next video, and remember, stay smart with your money. Take care.